Economic indicators point to 5% mortgage rates. That's what we're going to cover in this monthly market report. This is for you if you are a real estate agent, a financial advisor, or an attorney interested in market data to help you advise a client, or perhaps you are that potential buyer or seller looking for some direction. I'm Paulo Rodriguez. I've been a mortgage professional since 2005, and here is the market data that you need to make an informed buying or selling decision, or help your client do the same. Before we get to why the pain of high mortgage rates will be short-lived, let's talk about home prices and inventory. I continue to hear that a massive correction is coming to the housing market. These are the December numbers from 2010 through 2022 for the Consumer Survey of Home Prices, courtesy of Fannie Mae. And it's very obvious what we see here. Going into this year, last December, we saw the highest percentage of consumers thought prices were going to go down over the next 12 months. And that's because we had some very erroneous headlines. And those headlines went something like this: a 20% home price decline, 7 forecast models are leaning crash. Here's where the other 13 models have the 2023 housing market going. If you look at that little red box, that was in Fortune magazine in December. Well, no wonder people were afraid. And let's take a look at how deep that fear was. Here's that same consumer confidence survey going all the way back to June 2010, which was the first month the survey was conducted. What we can see in the aftermath of the housing crash is that there were a lot of people concerned prices were going to continue to fall. Then things settled out as we got into 2013, 14, 15, 16 and 17, and obviously in the spring of 2020 when the pandemic hit, everyone thought that prices were going to crash. So there was a lot of fear out there. Then things settled down a little bit as we were going forward, although still a bit rocky. And then all of a sudden, with all of this talk of a repeat 2008 crash toward the end of last year, look at those red numbers. They dwarf what happened in the aftermath of the housing crash, and for a length of time, they also dwarfed the pandemic fear. Now, the reason that all those crazy headlines were occurring last fall and winter was that most economists thought that people would panic and put their home on the market. They said, well, with mortgage rates rapidly rising, with the talk of a recession coming, people were going to be afraid of 2008 all over again, and they were going to rush all their houses to the market, and that oversupply was going to cause a challenge. And I can't blame them too much for thinking that, because there was an anomaly that showed up in new listings data from Realtor.com. Take a look at this graph. The gray, light blue, and dark blue lines are 2017, 18, and 19. There's a seasonality to new listings coming to the market. It builds into the spring, and then in May, the black dotted line, it starts to drop off and then drops off more dramatically when the winter months come. That happens every year. That's the normal seasonality of new listings coming to the market. But the break point is normally in May. Now, last year, the red line, we saw that it didn't start dropping in May. It continued for a month upward. When economists saw that, when market analysts saw that, they said, oh my gosh, this is going to shoot up and shoot up all the way to the right. We're going to have a tremendous amount of new listings coming to the market. At the same time, interest rates are going up, which is going to really squeeze demand. In other words, a high supply of inventory, a low demand, prices are going to come crashing down. At least that was what they thought. The only thing is that it didn't happen. They went up for 1 month and then they dropped like a rock, lower than they were in 2017, 18, and 19. We didn't have too many listings. We had too few listings. Now, the other thing that a lot of economists said was with the recession and the end of the foreclosure moratorium, we're going to have a tsunami of foreclosures. Well, they got that wrong too. This is foreclosures in the first 6 months of each of the years listed at the bottom. So what we can see here is we're nowhere near 2008, 9, and 10 numbers. We're not anywhere close to that. We are a little higher than last year because the moratorium is over. And you'll see headlines saying foreclosures are up 185%, which is factually correct and yet completely out of context. The reality is that we are going to get back to normal foreclosure numbers somewhere around 500,000 annually, because every year things happen. People lose their jobs, people get sick, people get divorced, and they don't handle it well. To make a further case against foreclosures, people are paying their mortgages. If you look at the most current serious delinquency numbers, which are people who are 3 months behind on their mortgage, those numbers are falling like a rock. There are more and more people paying their mortgage, not more and more people not paying their mortgage. Here is what CoreLogic had to say. May's overall mortgage delinquency rate matched the all-time low and serious delinquencies followed suit. Furthermore, the rate of mortgages that were 6 months or more past due A measure that ballooned in 2021 has receded to a level last observed in March 2020. So in other words, we're back to normal numbers before the pandemic. But what is going to happen with prices? Well, the reason I know prices are going to be okay is just look at the inventory situation. People say, well, inventory's up. Yes, it's up. Maybe this week, but let's look at it same week in 2022 and the same week in 2019. There's a shortage of inventory and resiliency from buyers. Even 7% mortgage rates haven't appeared to scare them. We need listings and we need them badly. The chief economist at the National Association of Realtors said this: there are simply not enough homes for sale. The market can easily absorb a doubling of inventory. So now let's finally talk about mortgage rates. Here's the projections going forward. This is from Fannie Mae, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and the National Association of Realtors, as well as their average. And what we can see is that they all seem to think that by the end of this year, we'll be somewhere close to 6%. And then as we go through next year, we're going to break the 6 number into the 5s. And that's going to be crucially important because sellers that are locked in because of their mortgage rates, maybe they have a 3 or 4% mortgage rate, they're not going to take a 7% mortgage. They might take a low 6% mortgage, but I think the magic number is something with a 5 in front of it. And Zillow just came out with a survey showing this. Once we break into the 5s, things are going to get crazy. And that's the good news. But why are forecasters thinking this? Well, part of the reason that mortgage rates are up right now is because of inflation and what the Fed is doing in regard to rate hikes. The reason that the Fed is continuing to hike rates is because they're trying to drive inflation down to the 2% number. That's the number they're comfortable with. Once we hit 2%, they will back off. Now, it's important to remember that when the Fed moves rates, that does not directly impact mortgage rates. It impacts your short-term rate products such as credit cards and equity lines of credit, but it does not directly impact long-term interest rate products such as 30-year mortgages. The impact is indirect and pertains more to the rate of inflation. But once the Fed backs off hiking, we will see more certainty return to the market, which will help to close the spread between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year mortgage rate. The spread is usually on average under 2%, at least for the last 50 years it has. But right now it's over 3%. So when that 10-year Treasury comes down and the spread comes down, we'll be in the 5s for 30-year mortgage rates. Now, as it relates to the Fed stopping the rate hikes, some people might say, well, we're close enough. We're at 3% inflation and we were at 9% inflation. Can't we just pull the plug now and stop the uncertainty of what the Fed is going to do next? Well, there's a reason for that. Now, I'm not a raving fan of the Fed because I think they get more things wrong than they get right. But I am saying that in this case, I think that I understand what they're thinking. If we look at the oval on the left, what we see is back in April of 1970 and 72, inflation skyrocketed all the way up to 12.2%. The Fed did what the Fed needed to do in raising rates, and they dropped inflation tremendously to about 5%. They thought that was good enough, so they stopped the rate hikes. But it turned out that they didn't lower inflation enough. So as soon as they took their foot off the gas, inflation shot back up to 14.6%. That's what the Fed is afraid of. If they stop too soon, it's just going to shoot right back up. Here's the inflation rate versus the 30-year fixed rate. The inflation rate is in blue and mortgage rates are in green. And what we can see is that when the inflation rate comes down, mortgage rates come down. Well, the inflation rate just dropped like a rock, and I think the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is going to do the same thing. Can I guess when? No, I can't, because the markets can stay irrational longer than I can stay solvent to bet against them. Nobody knows exactly when, but we can look at the indicators and say it's not that far away. That's a wrap for the August monthly market report. I appreciate you listening in. Forward, subscribe, share. I'll be back next month, but before you go, if you're looking to purchase or refinance, or know someone that is and would like a no-cost consultation with me personally, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to analyze if your debt is structured in the most optimal way or if there's room for improvement. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.